Welcome back to another one of these off the head kind of thoughts that come to me, which I call perspectives. And really, they are kind of not planned, they are quite spontaneous. I just have an idea in my head, a subject, and I thought, I'll just talk a few minutes about it and see what comes to me while I'm speaking. And I was just thinking this morning about the nature of choice, about how we all have our choices. And choice is really the nature of the game. And I refer to our life experience as a game. I don't mean that in a kind of, funny ha-ha way, that, that it's not serious, that we're just playing around like children in a playground. Although in some ways, some aspects of life does seem like they are children, spoiled brats playing in a playground and bullying other people. But what I mean is that it's a kind of sophisticated game, just like the game of chess. Chess isn't a silly game. It's very sophisticated, and so is life. But it means that we have roles, we have movements, we have ways that we can play the game. And I do feel that it's very important to realize that we are playing a game. Because I don't think the choice is, there is a choice to opt out of the game, but that means physically leaving the game, choosing to pass on, to end the physical life experience, whether through some form of what we call death. But I would say it's not about not playing the game, it's about playing it well, knowing it's a game, and then also knowing that other people have their roles within the game. And other people may not comprehend life as a game, may not know they're playing, but that's fine because that's their role also. Their role may be more of an unconscious one. But we have a choice in how we wish to move through the game of life. And so I would say, from my perspective, I choose evolution, evolvement, growth. And by understanding that choice of evolution also means that I have to understand that there is the choice of involution, or to devolve. So some people may choose aspects of life that are what we would consider anti-life or counter-evolutionary forces. But that's a choice they've made. They've made through whatever reasoning or through whatever influence or whatever experiences or whatever. Some people, groups, for example, have chosen the non-evolutionary path to maybe we would say that that's stagnating their spirit and their growth. But that's a choice, and that choice in some way, in some technical way, is just as valid as the choice to evolve. But also at the same time, to understand that each is playing a role, we don't know that some choices to devolve will help to stimulate in some way the game of evolution to evolve. So we have to, I think, look at this from a bigger picture. And if we just see it as small choices having small consequences, then we take everything personally. We take everything as an insult against us or an attack against us. But it's hard to know what events on one level will have much larger impacts or stimulus in another way. We don't know, for example, we don't know fully if the dissonance and disarray that's happening now is also necessary in some ways to stimulate an awareness and a growth of evolvement. And I've said it before in one of my essays that a certain amount of friction is necessary in all movement, just as the for example, a car would not be able to move forward if the wheels did not make friction with the ground. So that kind of touch, rubbing, friction is necessary to cause movement. And so, and in some ways, I think we're seeing that in the world now. And, you know, it's like we've been sitting in one position for a long time. Imagine we're watching a very, very long, boring film and we've been sitting down for 3 or 3.5 hours. When you first get up to move, your body feels uncomfortable. It feels stiff and achy. And maybe you got up too quickly and you pulled a muscle. So whenever there's a shift going on, there's a moment of initial discomfort when we have to change positions. And it seems like we're going through that, changing the position right now in the world, and that is causing discomfort because we've been in a certain position for a long time, and now we're being forced to get up. You know, the move is finished, or the old move is finished, and we've got to change our position and rearrange ourselves, and that sudden getting up has causing discomfort and, you know, pulled a collective global muscle in a way. And also we have to realize that there's a choice to how we focus on things, because someone may look at me and say, well, you've always talk about inner growth and evolvement, but you know, you're lucky you can talk about that abstract thing. I'm too worried about my daily bread, you know. And referring to the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you know, the most basic needs are, food, shelter, and family, community, that kind of immediate physical needs. And if if we look at how the game is being played, most of the impacts and forces that surround us compel us to remain in that type of lower base of the hierarchy of needs. We're being compelled, forced to always focus on our security through fear. And if we go back to seeing some of the impulses in the world today, we can see that we've been compelled to remain focused on those lower base of the pyramid needs through our security, through fear, and through needing shelter to look after our home. We may have debts, we may have mortgages, and obviously our well-being and food, and obviously now with the food security crisis, the economic crisis, everything compels us to remain in that lower sphere, to only to not be able to break out of that. And so we don't have the so-called luxury of considering things like self-actualization, to use Maslow's terms. But again, that's a very real force in the world. But it also we should think of it as being a deliberate force on us to keep us, in those lower needs or lower desires, lower vibrations. And so to think about self-actualization, self-evolvement, is again a choice. Doesn't mean that we neglect or reject those satisfying those lower needs. No, we all need food and shelter and a sense of well-being. But it doesn't mean that at the same time we cannot make the choice to also consider and focus on self-evolvement and growth and the bigger picture. So we have a larger scope of and a larger grasp and a larger comprehension of the game. Because if we stay in those lower needs, the game becomes a lot smaller, and it may seem a lot more intense, and there's greater desperation in being at those lower needs. So those are just things that have occurred to me, and I wish to share. I'll see what else comes into my head in the upcoming days and weeks and months ahead. Thanks for your patience.